Jesus got killed for it. And so to align yourself with this revelation and this idea of what it means to live a meaningful life could mean a short life for you, because someone's not going to accept it. Because to align yourself with God and with what is not seen is to put yourself at odds with so many people in your neighborhood, in your community, your state, your nation, the world, who align themselves with accumulating wealth, power, prestige, respect. Jesus ended his life hated in 6 hours of torture between two criminals. Not because he went around saying, I am the King of Kings, I am the Lord of Lords, I am the Messiah, I am the Son of God. No. If you... And you know what? That would have been a great opportunity for the Catholic Church to interject into the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John some statements like that. Because we often, when you think of people who are Christians and what they believe, you also often think of them as aligning themselves with someone who claimed to be the King of Kings, the Son of God, the Messiah, the Savior, who came to heal all, almost proclaiming himself to be king wherever he went. Do you believe in Jesus? You don't believe in Jesus. No, he quietly went among people, one-on-one, often, and just spoke a word of truth. And they were so taken by it. That's so different. How would anybody know that? He knows about me. And when he speaks, the very core of my being shakes. I can't question him like I can question others, like a tax collector, or my former lover, or my family members. I can't challenge him. He must be the Messiah. And just the thought of that, and looking in his eyes, and coming to that realization, he helps you see who he is, not in condemnation, like so many pastors and preachers do today, but in love and in mercy, reflecting the very heart of Creator God. And then you have a transformed life in an instant. So I say all that because I think we are brought into that same place and that same expectation to be that same person for each other's release. Now some may say even more so in 2012 than ever before. Why? You have more earthquakes and wars throughout the earth than ever before. You have an alignment of stars that, I can't get into the specifics of it, but I'll get it for you later. But there is definitely an alignment that's like never occurred before. It only happens every zillion years. Mark that, zillion. You have prophecies of Jesus saying that he would raised this temple in 3 days, and we are now in the third day. How? Because we're 1,000, 2,000, and now starting 3,000 years away from the birth of Christ. And it says in the Bible that a day is as 1,000 years. So 1, 2, 3. Jesus said he would be raised in 1, 2, 3 days. And so his return may be in 1, 2, 3,000 years. I'm not saying it's fact. I'm just saying it's interesting to consider. The Maya calendar's ending. I like that. Yeah, the book of Revelation talking about the mark of 666 being in your forehead or your wrist. And why would all of a sudden we're talking about like getting some kind of a computer chip placed in our wrist? So instead of pulling out my Stop and Shop card, I just run my wrist across the scanner. Well, they wouldn't know about that 2,000 years ago. If you have a vision from God, I'm not thinking John's thinking too logically when he's writing down the book of Revelation, are you? So there again, we're returning to what I started with, which is you don't have to understand God to receive God. You have to be in a position of respecting God and wanting to be a blessing as a servant for somebody else's benefit that God can just move through. Just like John, I believe, allowed God to move through him to write the book of Revelation. Because if you try to logically understand it, it seems like purposefully given in such an obfuscated way that it's not intended to be understood, but to be received as having come from God, because this can't be the creation of mankind. Just like I don't think the idea of the need of a Savior can be a creation of mankind just based on generations of animal sacrifice in Judaism. Obviously leads to the life that Jesus left. Now I would agree with you that it could be man-made, that through the Old Testament, in the use of animal sacrifice in the life of the Jews, could be then brought to the next level, that we're waiting for somebody to live such a life, to actually be this final animal sacrifice. Instead of an animal, it's a human. And it's not only acceptable by God, he's sent by God. And not only is he sent by God, but whoever believes that God sent him has everlasting life, and that anyone who doesn't believe that is doomed to eternal hell. I could almost believe that man could come up with that. But what I don't believe is possible is that man would come up with that story, and that story, which is not true, based on this being a story, had such a profound effect on the people just because they believed it, that people who believed it instantaneously, their lives were transformed not only to martyrs being tortured by lions and who knows what else, but generations thereafter, people living lives of simple devotion to the words and life of Jesus, that they wouldn't have it any other way but to be found following the life of Jesus, because in their innermost being they find themselves to be set free by the Spirit of God, that no attachments in this world could possibly compete with it. Even up to today, 2,000 years later, people receiving gifts of healing and speaking the words of God and glorifying Jesus, not because they're members of a church, but because they're doing the same thing that people have been doing ever since Jesus was killed. I find that to be really unlikely.